So Lucky Jeans released their rebuttal to Sydney Sweeney and American Eagle's Good Jeans ad with Addison Rae. And Gap also released their version of a rebuttal to it with Katseye. And all of it kind of has me wondering about this concept of denim diplomacy and like what it might be happening astrologically that's causing this to be like a big flashpoint for American media right now. And it could just be that we're tired and bored because it's summertime and like who else has anything to talk about, but I think that it's actually a symptom of a bigger issue. I'm a Vedic astrologer, so I look at things from a Vedic point of view, and so I'm kind of like looking at everything, and I took a lot of notes about this, but essentially something that I'm noticing is that right now Pluto is retrograde in Uttara Ashada, which is a nakshatra that's all about kind of the collective, but specifically like taking collective control. So it's all about like how nations are using like heritage and purity narratives, specifically like how they're using dog whistles like Good Genes, or like Pluto's obsession with legacy and lineage and like what gets included in the future, whose future is actually maintained. And then Neptune is currently retrograde in Uttara Bhadrapada, which is ruled by Saturn and is all about collective illusions and ideals. And so right now, like Neptune is retrograde, so it's about like spiritualizing and dissolving norms. So those ads are pivoting between like mythologizing like that like heritage ideal, escapism with the sexy unreality of the Addison Rae and Lucky Jeans ad, and then like inclusivity as image, like what they were clearly trying to do with Gap and Katseye. And then like right now brands are trying to like shock with their framing, so that's like the Uranus and Kritika element that's kind of going on, where it's all about like making things stark, so it's stark comparisons between brands. And why denim specifically is actually pretty interesting. Rahu is currently in Purva Bhadrapada and Ketu is in Purva Falguni. So when Rahu is in Purva Bhadrapada, the north node, it brings in themes of like group identity and collective spectacle. And what better way to talk about collective spectacle than to talk about blue jeans, which are worn by everybody in the US and beyond mostly. So like denim is like the ritual uniform that everybody's being asked to redefine, whereas K2 and Purva Falguni is about detaching from like the old glamour, the old way of like sex appeal and like the way that people used to be. So the good genes, the good heritage. So like each of these ads is like a different way of like trying to fill in that like Rahu hunger for new belonging. So like American Eagle is leaning into like pseudoscientific heritage. Like Gap is more about like self-expression, and then Lucky Jeans is going back to like raw sex appeal, like let's just make girls hot again. And this happens like every few years, like this is a cycle. These are outer planets, and so they're always running in some sort of cyclical fashion, and so it's creating like a tug of war in the sky that then the ads are mirroring. The opposite of this is what was actually happening in 2016 when we saw the Trump campaign kind of like take control of everything because Rahu was in Purva Falguni then. So the golden age pull was actually dominating. We saw like idol politics taking place a lot then with like Hillary Clinton and endorsements from like Beyonce and Katy Perry. And then like ultimately America chose in 2016 the heritage purity myth of Trump over that celebrity glamour liberal dream. The other time that Rahu was in Purva Falguni was in 1998, where you saw the whole like Bill Clinton impeachment scandal. Like glam won culturally then, right? Like Spice Girls and TRL, like that was all dominating. But it always kind of alternates. Because prior to that, you saw it in 1979, like post-Vietnam, Studio 54 was like peak excess of Purva Falguni. And Reagan rode that like backlash into his own like first presidency. And so what happens this time? Well, I mean, we can just look back at the last times that Rahu was in Purva Bhadrapada. The last time prior to this, it was 1988. It was all George W. Bush, but also mass ritual spectacles like you saw like with Live Aid, MTV as like a ritual platform. Michael Jackson's Bad World Tour was like a stadium scale revival. We are also kind of seeing that with The Weeknd and his world tour and a similar kind of aesthetic that he's going for. And the outcome was that, idol culture still thrived with Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince, but politics were moving like hard into a heritage language that ultimately turned into what we saw in the next 20 years after that. The super predator language, the Rodney King riots. And then prior to that, Rahu was in Purva Bhadrapada in 1969. That's Vietnam War, protesting, the silent majority of Nixon, like Woodstock. I mean, like this, we're talking about counterculture rising. And that was like the beginning or the peak of counterculture rising in the wake of all of these different things that were occurring. But that's the thing about this, is that whenever there is like a new like ritual that's peaking, there's a backlash that then reasserts the other one. And so in that case, it reasserted the heritage myth that then carried in through the 70s. And I even went further back than that because I'm crazy. And prior to that, it was 1951, where you looked at the Cold War, McCarthyism, but then also Golden Age Hollywood stars. And so what we saw then was like, okay, glamour was dominating in entertainment, but the Cold War was still like tying America up, and it tied it up for the next like 40 years. So what is likely to come out of this? Well, probably more politicians using pop culture aesthetics, classic, but also you're going to see more things come up, more themes about like the collective, choreography, anything that's kind of like synchronized going on. Brands are going to really be pushing more like authenticity. But then like anything that's like branded that feels fake authentic, that's going to get called out. And so you're going to have the push-pull continue to happen. Like, what do I think is going to happen in the short term? I mean, ultimately, I think we're going to get even more about the heritage and purity myth, especially in the United States, but also globally, because heritage nationalism is even more powerful. And then we'll get a lot more brands and celebrities siding with self-expression, and ultimately it'll have to decide like who's going to win out this time. Is it going to be like self-expression and spectacle, or is it going to be heritage and kind of whatever they perceive as being a kind of collective obsession with glamour and beauty and legacy? I don't know. Astrological, like generational astrology is always fascinating, and this is not only like the tipping point of it. Like there's so much more that can be explored, but follow for more.